Hey guys, so we got a brand new interview with Nomura regarding Kingdom Hearts 4 that just came out with Game Informer. Really exciting stuff. It's a pretty lengthy interview. I want to kind of talk about at least a good chunk of this interview. If you want to read the entire thing, I will link it, but I'll, for the sake of your time, I'll kind of highlight some of the main stuff and whatnot, and all that good stuff. So if you guys do enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more. Really excited for Kingdom Hearts 4. Obviously, it's going to be a while until we get more information. We got a little bit of tidbits in this interview, which is really exciting stuff. I'm going to read you guys all the questions, but I'm not going to necessarily read all of the interview itself. Okay, so we're going to focus mostly on the highlights, like I said. So the first question was talking about the series recently celebrated 20 years. How does it feel to look back on the last 2 decades, and what do you hope Kingdom Hearts legacy will be? All that to say, he basically said that it's just kind of fuzzy, right, and whatnot, and that the series is always evolving, the stories are always going on. He says, regarding the legacy, I suppose the heart is a central theme to the Kingdom Hearts, franchise, if you will. We will continue to depict that and tell the story of the heart in different ways. Really interesting stuff. And then another question was, the series is known for its cliffhanger finales. How do you approach keeping these satisfying, but still ensuring fans felt like they had some answers? And he basically went on to say that, with every title, they just try to create a game that is contained within itself, and that there's an actual ending in a sense to each game, which is probably something similar to any game that is made, he says. But since the Kingdom Hearts storyline has so many mysteries and whatnot, and the story is ongoing, there's a bunch of different things that we can get into, he says. So, again, if you've ever played the series, you'll see that each game is, this is me, by the way, talking, not him. I'm saying this, JSkeleton Josh. If you've ever played the series, then you'll know that each game feels like its own thing, but it's also left with this open end, because it's an ongoing story, right? It's like each game has its own conclusive story, but at the same time, it's part of a bigger picture. So I think they pulled that off pretty well, personally. So he kind of touched on that. Again, I'm just kind of highlighting things. There's a lot more to this that you can read in its entirety. He says, what has been your favorite cliffhanger to see fans react to? And he says it's actually the original Kingdom Hearts, because he says that he feels like that was maybe really unexpected on the player's part, because people playing that first game probably didn't think that the story would continue beyond that. So that's, pretty interesting and makes a lot of sense. He says also in Kingdom Hearts 3, when Luxu takes off their hood at the very end, seeing fans' reaction to that as well, which was pretty epic, let's be real. Then he was asked, did you expect the characters from games like Birth by Sleep and 358 Over 2 Days would become so popular, right? So we're talking, of course, Aqua, Terra, Ventus, we're talking about Roxas, we're talking about Shion, Axel, all those groups of characters which have been huge characters. I mean, I love them personally. I love every single one of them, and I know a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans do as well. Nomura said that, he says, I really didn't think the characters from these 2 titles would become so popular. He thought players wanted to see more of characters like Sora and Riku, and so it was kind of unexpected that the characters from these 2 titles were so well received. And he says, as far as continuing their story in Kingdom Hearts 4, he says, Kingdom Hearts 4 is more focused on Sora's disappearance, and so he's not really sure if there's going to be room to really explore the other characters' stories as much. He's aware, and the team is aware, that these characters are very popular and people want to see more of them. So if possible, it would be great to include more of them to continue to share more of their story in future opportunities. So basically, for Kingdom Hearts 4, it's focused mostly on Sora's disappearance, what's going on with that, but they're going to explore it a little bit further if they can, either, a little bit maybe in this game if they're able to sneak it in a way that makes sense, or, in future titles, because they're aware that we love them, that we love these characters. Another question was that another area where we saw Kingdom Hearts popularity surge was Sora in Super Smash Bros. So this has been a huge topic that has been going on, and all in all, basically, to summarize what he said that it was him that was a little bit kind of iffy, if you will. So he says that he couldn't believe that Disney okayed for him to be in the game. Behind the scenes, he says that he was the one who was very picky, or was being very picky about his appearance in Smash Bros. And Disney was the ones that were like, go ahead, this is a great opportunity. So Disney was all in, and Nomura was the one that thought it would be hard to pull off because it might clash with the established lore in the Kingdom Hearts and Disney worlds and all that. So it was an opportunity that he had to consider very carefully. So he was very kind of iffy at first. But after seeing how happy everyone was in welcoming Sora to Smash Bros, he said he feels like the end result was really great. Going on from that, he's talking about Xehanort being such a memorable villain, and now that we're going into the Lost Masters arc, how do you follow that up and create fresh conflict with new adversaries? Without reading Nomura's response, I will just personally inject and say, I mean, we got a bigger character that we've known forever, which is the Master of Masters and that whole side of things. But what Nomura went on to say is, they took a lot of time to flesh out, Xehanort's presence throughout the series. It all started obviously in Kingdom Hearts. There's Ansem in Kingdom Hearts 2, Xemnas, which are all obviously forms in some way or another without getting too deep into the lore of Xehanort. But anyways, he goes on to say that basically these two figures stem from one person and whatnot. And it all led up to this, whole kind of conclusion, right? It gave the story a lot of depth and density, and they feel like they really pulled it off, being able to kind of, flesh it out, Xehanort's arc, if you will. So he says now that we're going to the next saga, the Lost Master arc, we're going to be delving into a new enemy figure for the continuation, of the story. This new enemy has a lot to do with the masked characters that appear at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So there's going to be obstacles standing in front of Sora. He says also in Kingdom Hearts 2.8, we showed what kind of characters they are, so the enemies already have appeared in the series. We'll be reintroducing them, he says, and obviously there will be more new characters as well, but we really can't go into detail on those characters just yet. Beyond that, he says, do you feel it's important to keep Sora as the main protagonist? Do you ever see the series moving beyond him? Very kind of reassuring answer, in my opinion. He says, as far as spin-offs go, of course there's been other main characters that were not Sora, but in terms of the mainline series, which is the numbered series, he says he thinks Sora is really the only candidate for the main character, and that if Sora is no longer the main character, he would feel that that would indicate the end of the numbered titles. He says he's that important to the series, which is pretty crazy. I mean, pretty obvious as well, but pretty awesome, if you will. Going on from that, he says that he was asked, we see Donald and Goofy in the Kingdom Hearts 4 reveal. So one question a lot of fans have is, how much will Disney be integral, into this series, this new kind of arc, if you will, especially Kingdom Hearts 4. Basically says in regards to Kingdom Hearts 4, this is reassuring, by the way, we're definitely going to see a few Disney worlds in there, and he goes on to say that fans don't need to worry so much about this aspect of the game. It might feel slightly different from previous Kingdom Hearts titles, but once players have a chance to play the game, he's sure that they'll be relieved to find that it's definitely a Kingdom Hearts title. So that's kind of what he's saying at the base of it all. It's definitely a Kingdom Hearts title. It's the game series that they've come to know and love. So very reassuring answer. Then he goes on to talk about, of course, the graphics quality, which of course, with each new title, the specs have been really increasing. There's so much more that they could do in terms of graphics, the limits of it kind of limits the number of worlds, he says, that we can create in a sense. He says at this time we're considering how to approach that, but there will be Disney worlds in Kingdom Hearts 4. So again, there's gonna be Disney worlds in Kingdom Hearts 4, which is really, really reassuring. Just a couple more things we're going to try to go through. We basically were asking, how did you start working on ideas, or when rather, and start planning Kingdom Hearts 4? What things did you know you wanted to incorporate early on? Basically says whenever he's working on a title, he's thinking about what he wants to incorporate in the next one. So for Kingdom Hearts 4, he was already starting to think about it during Kingdom Hearts 3. And then he also goes on to say that, for example, Kingdom Hearts 2, they introduced the reaction command. He felt that fans didn't take to it too well, so that's why they removed it in Kingdom Hearts 3. But then fans were like, why'd you take it out? And so now they're considering bringing it back in Kingdom Hearts 4. But he says the challenge is with the action gameplay. It's hard to execute the satisfying action moves when the footing isn't very secure. That's something we're working on and hoping we can realize as an aspect of gameplay in Kingdom Hearts 4. Then he was asked, are we going to be spending a lot of time in Quadratum because it does have a more realistic setting? Does it give you bigger opportunities to try new things with the gameplay? And he says there's there's going to be a fair amount of time in Quadratum. It's the initial base where you're, you know, kind of within the game. You're going to spend time there. You're going to go to different worlds. You're going to go back there and whatnot. He says the graphics are more realistic this time. He feels that there's more of a realistic daily life aspect to Sora's life. You can see him go in and out of his room and spend some time there. That's very interesting. He says he feels like players will get to see more of the day-to-day routines that he goes through. As for worlds, you know, in the past we feature a lot of Disney worlds, he says, and among those, the more realistic one is probably, you know, the Pirates of the Caribbean. This time around, he says we're spending some time in the actual real world. So he says that was a challenge for ourselves, just to see how realistic we can make this, and that's something we're working on right now, he says. For now, we can't really dive further into any further details beyond that. So final 2 questions. I know this has been a lengthy video. I'm trying to just give you guys, like I said, highlights. There is more in here, but kind of give you just kind of, again, the meat and potatoes, if you will. Goes on to say that, you know, fans have been concerned about the lack of Final Fantasy characters, new entries. Do you still want to dial down on the amount of them in a series, or is Kingdom Hearts 4 a chance to bring in more cameos? Personally, by the way, I just want to say that I think that they will take that opportunity, especially since Final Fantasy is more realistic. I think it would be the perfect game to introduce more Final Fantasy elements, but what Nomura said is that he says, I understand there weren't many Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3, and he says one thing he wants to clear up is that a lot of fans are saying that Kingdom Hearts is like a collaboration between Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters, but he feels that's not really the basic concept of Kingdom Hearts. That's not exactly what Kingdom Hearts is. He says when they released the first title, they only had a few original Kingdom Hearts characters. When they were, you know, interacting with really well-known, beloved Disney characters, he felt nobody really knew these new characters, so it was harder for them to stand their ground just yet. And so that's kind of why they had a lot of Final Fantasy characters involved, to kind of lend a hand for everyone to get to know these original Kingdom Hearts characters better. So, you know, it's kind of for familiarity's sake is why they injected, you know, Final Fantasy characters a little bit more in the original title. And now he says there's so many original characters from the Kingdom Hearts series that are so well loved, and people want to see more of those characters. And so with Kingdom Hearts 3, since they had so many original Kingdom Hearts characters, it was kind of hard to find room to include Final Fantasy characters. So they're trying to find a balance for that, he says. And you know, some fans are concerned about that and weren't too happy and wanted to see some more Final Fantasy characters. So they are thinking about that. But again, you know, Kingdom Hearts has so many original characters. It's kind of hard to, you know, strike that balance between, you know, all of that and just kind of seeing how it's going to play out in Kingdom Hearts 4. So again, no firm reply, but that's kind of that at that. So the final question says, do you want to give one final tease? And basically says, with regards to Kingdom Hearts 4, there's no new information to be able to give for now, and he says not for a while actually, but he says obviously there's, you know, some new information that he's revealed in this interview that you can go through. He also is mentioning the Missing Link, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, they're working towards launching the closed beta within the year. He knows it's not, you know, not everybody is really into smartphone games, so some fans may not be really excited for it, but they're trying to make it that's something that anyone can jump into and whatnot. He says it's a lot closer to the series and also connected in many ways to Kingdom Hearts 4. So I guess in some ways, if you play the game Missing Link, you'll see how it's going to connect to Kingdom Hearts 4, I guess, when you actually play Kingdom Hearts 4. And he says the easiest way to get new information about and hints for Kingdom Hearts 4 would be to play Missing Link. So again, there's going to be some tidbits in there. He says there's going to be some more mysteries not related to Kingdom Hearts 4 specifically, but just throughout the series in it. So I guess a lot of lore and a lot of connections that they're going to be making and whatnot. And he says some figures that appear in Missing Link are tied to Kingdom Hearts 4. So I guess all that to say, you're going to want to play Kingdom Hearts Missing Link if you want to better understand Kingdom Hearts 4 and get a little bit of a sneak peek at some, I guess, some of the stuff that we will eventually see in 4. So that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of the interview. I'll link it all down in the description below if you want to read the entirety. Like I said, it's kind of tried to highlight as much as I could. I did kind of cover the majority of the interview, but maybe there's some little tidbits in there you can still get out of it. If you enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more. Let me know if you guys are hyped for Kingdom Hearts 4 and of course also Missing Link. And I'll see you guys very soon in another one. Tell them, my friends, game on, and thanks for watching.